Hey, hi, hello. You're listening to Tickling Chronicles, the show where spooky meets storytelling and the page to screen journey takes a little twist. Have you ever wondered how a shark, a boat, and a very stressed out police chief redefines what fear looks like on a screen? Yeah, let's talk. I'm your host, Courtney, a paranormal mystery author, lover of creepy plot twists, not so much creepy swim spots, and the creator of The Missing Reflection, my debut the creator of the Missing Reflection, my debut novel for sale on Amazon. And today, we're taking a big old bite out of Jaws, the novel, the movie, and the legacy. But before we dive in, let's do the general housekeeping. So take a sec, follow, like, subscribe, whatever your app calls it, and if you can, drop me a review. It helps a ton. It's like chum in the water, but for algorithms. Okay, so let's grab your vest and get into it. We are going to start with the setup. Here we have the book, the movie, and one very misunderstood fish. If you're like me, born in the 80s, raised in the 90s, and happily a self-proclaimed millennial, your first introduction to the story might have been a theme park ride at one of the best places in Orlando, Florida. Let's just call it my happy place. But in this, there's so much backstory. We're going to start with Peter Benchley's novel, Jaws, which was published in 1974. This book was inspired by real shark attacks, and with a journalist's background, Benchley wrote a story that was less shark thriller and more human messiness with teeth. Think corrupt mayors, mafia pressure, and a healthy dose of the 1970s existential dread. Then came Steven Spielberg. Fresh-faced, brilliant, slightly in over his head. He took that novel and it turned it into one of the most iconic movies of all time. He faced every production nightmare imaginable. Boats that didn't behave, a mechanical shark that refused to work, lovingly dubbed Bruce, which is also the name of the shark at Universal Studios, go visit him, and ocean filming that made everyone seasick. But from that chaos came something genius. Spielberg trimmed the subplots, softened the characters, and cranked up the suspense. And voila, a film that not only terrified audiences, but invented the summer blockbuster as we know it. Also, did I mention that this beast of a movie turned 50 this year? That is correct. Jaws hit theaters in June of 1975, which means this summer marks 5 decades of having movie magics known as summer blockbusters, as well as side-eyeing the ocean and hearing that iconic score anytime you dip a toe in. So let's take a look at the book versus the movie. This is going to be a bloody tale of two tones. Here's the breakdown. Also, I do want to do a bit of a spoiler alert. If you haven't read the book or seen the movie, or even both, I may spoil it for you. So if you want to avoid that, push pause, then go read the book and or watch the movie. Both are truly great. Though I do have a favorite, which I'm sure you'll see as we continue on. But once you finish, come back to me. Are you back? Let's get into the book. Here is the description as listed on Amazon. A great white shark terrorizes the beautiful summer getaway of Amity Island, and a motley group of men take to the waters to do battle with the beast. A heart-pounding novel of suspense and a brilliant meditation on the nature of humanity, Jaws is one of the most iconic thrillers ever written. Here's my take. It's dark. It's bleak. And the shark is written to be a symbol of societal decay. Mayor Vaughn isn't just greedy, he's mob-connected. Also, and again, spoiler alert, Cooper sleeps with Brady's wife. The whole town feels like it's rotting from the inside out, and Benchley was clearly making a point about corruption, capitalism, and the fact that we are, as a species, deeply bad at listening to warnings. Let's move on to the movie. Here's the plot according to IMDb. When a massive killer shark unleashes chaos on a beach community of Long Island, it's up to a local sheriff, a marine biologist, and an old seafarer to hunt down the beast. My takeaway. Spielberg said, okay, but what if we made the shark scarier by showing it less? And let's make the people more likable too. I know there were production issues, which we'll get into later, but he ended up turning Amity into a community instead of a cautionary tale. Mayor Vaughn is flawed, yes, but he's not evil. And Brody, Hooper, and Quint become a mismatched but lovable trio on a quest not just to kill the shark, but to reclaim their power in the face of fear. And let me tell you, getting there was not smooth sailings. As I said, the production of Jaws was a mess. Spielberg was only 26 at the time and still proving himself. The mechanical shark, again named Bruce after his lawyer, constantly broke down. Saltwater wreaked havoc on the electronics. Filming at sea caused massive delays, and the crew affectionately, or not so affectionately, called the whole ordeal flaws. But here's where things get interesting. Those technical failures ended up shaping the film in brilliant ways. Because the shark didn't work, they had to imply it instead of show it. And that decision to let the idea of the shark do the heavy lifting turned out to be genius. It forced Spielberg to lean into tension, atmosphere, and John Williams' now legendary two-note score to build fear. Sometimes budget and breakdowns force better storytelling, and Jaws is a masterclass in that kind of creative pivot. Now, let's talk about the screenplay. While Peter Benchley wrote early drafts of the script himself, Universal brought in scriptwriter Carl Gottlieb to shape it into something that would actually work on screen. Gottlieb not only helped restructure the story, but he also brought warmth, humor, and much-needed humanity to the dialogue, especially for Brody and Hooper. And the actors, they brought a whole lot of their own flavor. There's Robert Shaw's chilling monologue about the USS Indianapolis, which he wrote. It is now one of the most unforgettable scenes in film history. Roy Scheider also improvised the now iconic line, "You're gonna need a bigger boat." And Richard Dreyfuss brought a perfect blend of charm and nerdy bravado to Hooper, making him more than just a science guy. So yes, Jaws might have started out as a gritty, cynical novel, but on set, it evolved into something else. It was a character-driven, suspense-soaked story about fear, survival, and reluctant heroism. And all of that, it happened because the original plan fell apart. So, does this adaptation crawl like Bruce waiting to malfunction again, or does it swim? And let's be honest, it swam like a beast. In fact, Jaws might be one of the rare cases where the adaptation not only succeeds, it improves on the source material. But why? Well, to begin, there's a tighter focus. It cuts the mafia and the affair story out. It also has a stronger character where we find ourselves rooting for Brody in the movie in a way we could never really do in the book. Then there was also the creative constraint. Spielberg couldn't show the shark, so he showed us fear. But hey, credit where it's due. Benchley gave us the bones. He created a myth, a menace, and a very real fear that has echoed through pop culture ever since. And to note, he later became a shark conservationist, wanting to correct some of the damage he'd actually done from his book after realizing he'd accidentally turned the public against one of nature's most misunderstood predators. If you're looking for an amazing deep dive into the comparison of the book and the movie, check out Laura on Why the Book Wins. She has an episode on Jaws that I think beautifully dives into this adaptation. But let's talk about impact. Jaws didn't just change movies, it changed everything. It invented the summer blockbuster. It made Hollywood trust thrillers with real budgets. It made people afraid to swim in the ocean. It gave us, "You're going to need a bigger boat." And it gave Universal Studios one of the most beloved theme park rides of all time. If you want to ride it, you're going to have to go to Japan because it is unfortunately no longer available in the United States. But it also taught storytellers a critical lesson. Suspense isn't about what you show, it's about what you don't show. Letting the audience imagine the monster is often scarier than anything you could build, animate, or CGI into existence. Jaws doesn't stop there, though. It delivered a masterclass in storytelling across multiple levels. Let's sink our teeth into some of those lessons. 1. Limitations can spark brilliance. A broken shark animatronic turned into a genius cinematic choice. Don't be afraid to work with what you've got, because sometimes the bigger constraints leads to your best ideas. 2, let character dynamics drive the tension. The shark might be the threat, but the real magic is in the character connections. Let's take a look at Brody, Hooper, and Quint as they clash, evolve, and bond. Their personalities are the emotional anchor that kept the audience invested. 3, start small, then escalate. Jaws doesn't open with a full-blown shark attack montage. It starts with one eerie disappearance, one scream in the dark, build slow, and let the tension rise like the tide. 4, every line doesn't need to explain. Some just need to resonate. You're going to need a bigger boat is the perfect example. There's no exposition, there's no backstory, just vibe, timing, and tone. Dialogue should feel lived in, not like it was dragged out of the writer's manual. 5, use setting as a character. Amity Island isn't just a backdrop. It's part of the conflict, the beach, the docks, the boat. All of this plays into the suspense. A strong sense of place can heighten danger, theme, and stakes. 6, horror or suspense works best when it's grounded in emotion. What makes the shark scary isn't just the teeth. It's Brody's fear. It's his fear for his kids. It's Quint's war trauma. It's the town's denial. The threat is big, but the emotions are relatable. 7, know when to strip it down. The novel had subplots. There were mobsters, affairs, side characters, but the movie trimmed that fat and focused on the emotional core. Let me say, novels tend to require subplots. But even in a novel, don't be afraid to kill your darlings. Those subplots can be used to build up the central story, but you also need to be able to see if it's dragging it down. You have to cut, condense, and center your story on what matters most. Jaws didn't just terrify generations of beachgoers. It changed the way we think about building tension, shaping character, and honoring story above spectacle. It's a reminder that even a thriller about a giant shark can teach us to write with heart, economy, and guts. Lots of guts. Well, that's the end, guys. But before we wrap up, I've got one favor to ask. If you've enjoyed this episode, take a moment to leave a review on wherever you're listening to this podcast. It might seem like a small thing, but reviews make a huge difference. They help more curious minds and fellow mystery lovers find the show. Plus, it lets me know you're out there tuning in and geeking out over the stories just as much as I am. And hey, if you really liked it, drop a shark emoji in your review, so I know you listened all the way through to the end. And yes, if you're waiting for something spooky and bookish to land on your TBR, The Missing Reflection is coming out this September. Follow me on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, TikToks, all the socials for more updates. Links, as always, are in the episode description. Thanks for swimming through this deep dive with me. Whether you're teen book or teen movie, Jaws continues to show us just how powerful a well-told story can be, even when it has teeth. Until next time, stay curious and maybe, just maybe, stick to the pool this summer. Just joking. See you in the next chapter. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Chickling Chronicles. Make sure you like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so that you never miss a story or a conversation. See you next time.